republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Jenna, could we have roll call, please?
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Grabowski? Here. Commissioner Hoff? Here. Commissioner Lang? Here. Commissioner Belt? Here. Trustee Roberts?
Here.
President Knutson?
Here.
And Commissioner Mance is excused.
Okay. First thing on the agenda this evening is a public hearing, the conditional use grant request the property owner applicant, Nick and Jill DeCardo, to replace the existing front deck on their home with a new deck that would extend into the required 35-foot setback area of the lot. This 2.20 acre property located at 468 Spring Street is zoned R5 single family residential. I hereby open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment as it relates to that? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing then. The other public hearing is the conditional use grant amendment request. The property owner applicant Century Abrams, LLC, DBA Chick-fil-A, to convert a portion of the existing landscape area into paved outdoor seating area. The 2.09 acre property located at 1454 Capitol Drive is Zone B1 Community Business District with a planned unit development POD overlay. I hereby open up the public hearing on this particular item. Anybody want to make a comment?
Yes. My name is Frank Richter. I'm at 1465 Sunny Ridge Road, Pewaukee. I live right behind it. I reviewed their conditional use permit, and they still haven't complied with number G, all architectural features, facets of the building, including the rooftop area entirely that are visible to the surrounding view. I have pictures if you'd like to see them.
Could you give it to Jenna, please?
Okay, so this should be, I think that was in the email we got today.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so.
Those are the email ones?
Yep. Yeah, we received the email about 3 o'clock today.
So the commissioners have those then?
From my neighbor
Yes.
at
Yep, I emailed those.
73 Sunny Ridge.
I believe so, yeah. Yes.
The email that's on the screen was received from a resident at 1454.
I think that,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Well, your address is in.
That is not my, it's from 1473.
Oh, so, okay. That's not
So
the
you
right
are
one.
separate.
Yes.
Okay, so this
Okay,
is
so
not in
these
the
are
email. Those are new.
65.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
They're the same though.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Well, I don't really have anything further other than I wouldn't think you should approve any further conditional use permits until we get this one completed.
Okay.
Okay?
That'll be addressed by the planner. We'll address the items and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment at this time?
Hi, Trustee Ed Hill, 303 Sunset Drive, the Village of Pewaukee. It's not often I get to stand on this side of the podium. So I'm here to address item on your agenda for the R5 infill.
Ed, this is a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Soon, next thing you can get in.
We know you have no experience in this whatsoever.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on the public hearing? Yes, Mary?
I guess I just want to say that we have received this other email, and that in it, in addition to providing photos that suggest that the HVAC units are visible from their vantage point, There is also content here about employees remaining on at the site after the closing hours of the restaurant and making loud noise, disturbing her dogs, which in turn disturb the other neighbors. So there may be some operational concerns there. I just wanted to share that as a part of the public hearing, so she's on record.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. I will close that public hearing and go into item 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with commission members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the commission is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the commission. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address. Is there anybody out here that would like to make a comment at this time?
Rise again. Village Trustee Ed Hill, 303 Sunset Drive, Village of Pewaukee. So at our last board meeting, I had requested several changes to the residential infill. What the board forwarded to you as the commission was to look at, in particular, the number of lots that are allowed to be below what is the ordinance minimum and set to the new ordinance limit minimum. So I hope that everyone's had an opportunity to visit the Glen at Pewaukee Lake, now that several homes are either completed or under construction. Seeing this is much easier than looking at a set of plans. You can actually visualize it. I feel that Cornerstone overall has done a good job in exceeding the minimum requirements per the R5 requirements. The recommended minimum changes will be for any future developments, ones that do not currently have an approved plat plan. I believe the Village of Pewaukee deserves better, as we have very little developable land. Land is a natural resource that cannot be created. Let's make sure that what is left is used appropriately and in the best interest of the Village of Pewaukee. Once a development is completed, the developer basically walks away, and the village has what they agreed upon for perpetuity, regardless of what the final project looks like. We should not let developers control how our village is developed in order for them to make a profit. The village should strive for continued improvement. Now is the time to review the R5 infill development. With regards to section 40.367.5, single-family residential density limits, the minimum required average lot area for single-family residents shall be 8,500 square feet. The village may permit an average lot area as low as 7,500 square feet for single-family residents for development project or for redevelopment. In this instance, redevelopment projects are defined as development projects where all or at least a substantial percentage, as determined by the village, of the existing improvements value of property is raised and removed and replaced with new construction. The village may approve 7,500 square foot average lot size as described above and shall not be viewed as a vested right, and shall be determined based upon a case-by-case assessment of each development proposal and the public interest served by the proposal. That's how this reads. So I handed out to all of you a lot sizes based on the number of lots. At the Glen, the average lot size is 8,509 square feet. Of the 46 lots, 26% or 26 or 56.6% are less than 8,500 square feet. 15 are less than 7,500 square feet. Of these 15, that represents 32.6% of the entire development. For Riverside Preserve, what is being approved on their plot, the average lot size is 8,731. Of the 36 lots, 18 or 50% are less than 8,500 square feet. 10 of these lots are less than 7,500 square feet. These 10 lots represent 27.8% of the entire development. I want to know, what is the required assessment to allow that less than the minimum required lot area? Is there a written criteria that can be found for the assessment to just justify reducing the lot size to less than 7,500? Again, the Village of Pewaukee deserves better. The village has previously made clear for several commercial properties in the past that the standard exterior design would not be accepted. Changes requested for future developments do not have an approved plot plan. And this change is only for those developments that do not have a plot plan. Again, land is a natural resource that we can't recreate. Let's make sure that what was left, we take care of and use it in the best interest of the village. Now is the time for continued improvement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on anything at all? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am Maggie Wagner. I am the Director of Public Works City Engineer for the City of Pewaukee. I am here today for item 6A. It's brought to you basically from a request that I had that at the entrance of the development that's occurring there, that there be XL decel lanes and a bypass lane installed on Swan Road. That comment was based off of some initial design I have. I see that there has been revised plans since then. So I would agree that a bypass lane is probably not in the best interest in this location, but I still would urge you to require XL decel lanes for their driveway entrance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Cindy Hill, 303 Sunset Drive. I'm here to talk about the residential infill development. Again, asking you to look forward, continuous improvement. I do appreciate all the past discussion, all the difficult discussions, the hard work you put into it. But I'm asking that you look forward, okay? One interesting sticking point is the placement of garbage and recycling containers. The other is the lack of green space. I will focus on the garbage containers. Several months ago, Scott and Mary spent a good amount of time reviewing the ordinance with me, and I appreciate it. I recall all three of us looking through the development agreement for the container ordinance, as we actually thought that it had been discussed and agreed on. Unfortunately, the current version is remiss in this regard. The village board again discussed it on April 5th. At the meeting, it was actually stated that the garbage container ordinance is not currently enforced, so why should it be forced for new residents? I would suggest that this is backward thinking, and I'm asking that you look forward for the future developments. The trustee is not incorrect. The ordinance is not enforced. The existing village code, section 74116, placing of materials for collection, it states, no garbage can or trash container shall be kept upon or adjacent to any street, sidewalk, parkway, front yard, side yard, or other place within the view of persons using the Village of Pewaukee streets and sidewalks, except that one placing for collection. I encourage you to drive around Pewaukee to witness the total disregard of our businesses, and that includes apartment complexes. And I would suggest you start on Moore Street. They are sitting right out by the sidewalks. Then humor yourself and drive down Hickory Streets. There are some in plain view. And then you may continue on your own residences because you'll probably see the same kind of things. Furthermore, the overlay district states that the structure shall be offset from one of the side lines not less than 5 feet, but further states it may share a common wall. This offset or common wall will most likely be on the side of the garage. If there is no foresight of container placement, many new residents will be challenged to find a location, as many current residents do. Fortunately, the Glen has garages that are 2 3/4 cars wide. Go there, they're beautiful, those garages are to die for. Their developments have not had an issue regarding garbage containers per the salesperson in the model home. Today, I'm just asking that you look forward and either require garage space require garage space, such as the Glen, or require placement of a concrete pad with street view screening that complies with the village code. As for the green space, during the April 5th meeting, it was suggested that we wait to see what the Glen looks like when it's done. And it is nice, but right now there's only 17 of the 46 homes erected. So they very strategically have it looks nice. 21 lots still are not sold. And per the sales rep, there will be no trees added. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Yes, yes, sir.
Nick DiCordo, 468 Spring Street. Just wanted to quickly introduce myself. I'm here looking for the conditional use grant for my property. So if there's any questions during the discussion, item 6B, I'll be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment. Back to the home page. Okay. Item 4, approval of the regular Planning Commission meeting minutes dated March 9th, 2023. I hope everyone's had a chance to look them over. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns as to the way they are presented this evening?
The one possible
Yes,
change.
sir.
On page 4, under new business, which is item 6, we were talking about the request by WCTC to expand the hours. And then in the comment here, the last paragraph, it indicates, I commented about contractors starting before 8 a.m. I believe I said 7, but I'll defer to what is actually true. Don't we have it where they can't start before 7? 7. Yeah, so we just need to change 8 to 7.
Okay. Is there any other? If not, I'll look for a motion with the correction added.
Motion to approve with Mr. Roberts' correction.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Item 5, under old business. I think what we'll do is skip down to B. Review, discussion, and possible action recommendation to the village board on request of Kirkland Crossings, Inc. to modify the language in Chapter 40, Article 6, Division 23 of the Village Code, Housing for Elderly Overlay HEO District, as it relates to the percentage of units in the HEO project that may be allocated for independent versus assisted living. Mary, do you have something you'd like to say?
Sure, just to refresh the commission, you looked at this back in February of this year, kind of as a general question of whether there would be some willingness to think about amending this elderly housing overlay district to allow more than 50% independent living units as a part of the development project. There was kind of a consensus in favor of being willing to consider that. So we brought it back up to you back in March. And the direction at that time was to put our heads together with the developer, the prospective developer, to find out what criteria they could find that made sense to the village as a meaningful basis on which to consider increasing the allowable percentage of independent living units in these projects. And their answer at the time, the solution that was brought back to the commission in March, was to allow for any affiliated or non-affiliated in-home care service providers to come to these units and provide service on an unlimited basis. So they would all be independent living units was the request, and we would allow affiliated and non-affiliated service providers to come in and provide whatever level of service any of these residents desires in their unit. The commission felt like that, like there wasn't quite enough of a nexus there, a connection between the basis and the purpose for the district, the overlay district, as it was originally created, meaning that it was really intended to be a continuum of care, a life, an elderly life cycle living opportunity, going all the way from independent through to assisted and through to full nursing, potentially on to memory care, whatever the needs might be. But the idea was to make these communities that were that continuum. And that is what's set forth in the purpose statement of the overlay district. So the commission didn't really find that was an adequate solution in your minds to inspire you to want to allow more than 50% independent living. And part of the discussion that came up at last month's meeting was, what about somehow tying it to, because in this particular case, we have an applicant who's requesting this change to the code, and they happen to be in or nearly in the pipeline for a specific project. And they have some level of association to the existing Kirkland Crossings development immediately adjacent to and next door to this property. And so the thought was, well, what if we go back and tie it to being, we can allow more independent living units if you happen to be adjacent to an existing continuum of care development project. And so that's what we've done. We've come back to you as a staff with a draft, and I'm going to scroll past the February language and get down to the new language, which would say that independent living units shall, unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission pursuant to section I below, be permitted only as a subordinate use within the development project, etc. And then section I below reads that the Planning Commission could permit an increase up to 100% in the actual number of independent living units allowed as a percentage of total units in the development in cases where the new project is located adjacent to an existing housing for the elderly development that does provide the full spectrum or continuum of housing types, including full nursing care, assisted living, memory care, CBRF, and independent living. Okay, so that language is put out under this report of mine, but I have to say, and I say this under the recommendation, that I still feel like that connection is a little bit like a cherry pick. We're going to just cherry pick something about this particular project that's going to allow us to say, in your case, we can allow more than 50% independent living units. And it doesn't seem like that's a basis for a land use decision to be made. And certainly the characteristic types of these independent assisted memory care have different land use implications. Some require staffing to come and care for the units. Some have very active adults with 2 cars. So how you measure those isn't really related to, and how they impact the village isn't really related to whether or not they're adjacent to an existing similar use. So I still have some concern about it. I am entirely willing to roll with the commission right? But I wanted to just make you aware that from a land use and planning standpoint, it still does feel a little like a cherry pick. So the applicant, we talked to them about this at the staff level, and I had shared with them my feelings about this proposed language, and offered them an opportunity to provide us with some other thoughts on other ways that we might otherwise modify the language to make a sensible relationship between increasing the number of independent units and the criteria. And that letter is in your packets. And to an extent, they have connected onto a different age level. They've said, what if it was marketed to people 62 and over? Would that be a good criteria? Who it's marketed to and who ends up actually occupying is, to me, who actually occupies is the threshold criteria. Who you market it to, is kind of wide open. But in this case, like I said, they had targeted 62 as an age that might inspire you. And I know the village attorney also had some concerns potentially about using an age that's different than the 55 and up, which is a statutory, definition of senior housing, and whether there might be some liability, maybe not on the village's part, but on the developer's part even, for excluding others of certain ages. Then there were a couple of other options that the provider would maintain at least 30% RCAC licensing in the building, which means they have 30 RCAC licenses, which they may use, but they're not required to use. And those licenses allow them to bring assisted level services into any of the units, any of those 30% of the units, okay? So it allows them to elevate the level of care without moving the individual tenant occupant to a different building or a different property. I suppose that it goes in part to the relationship of continuum of care, but again, it's a may use them, it's not a must use them. RCAC is, they're there, but you're not required to take advantage of those. So the applicant is here. I really should let them speak on their own behalf about some of the criteria they're proposing. But from the perspective of, adjacent to an existing continuum of care point of criteria, I don't know that it feels like there's much land use or planning built into that. I'm going to turn it over to the commission. The language is there for you based on what you had said you wanted to see after last month's meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Craig?
Yeah, I want to kind of bring the commission up to speed a little bit on this. Following our discussion last month where we were just really wrestling with how do we make this work, spent some time thinking about it and looking at it, and the more I thought about it, the more I literally in my own mind did a complete 180. I know when we first talked about it, I brought to you guys the thought that, the concerns that we had a number of years ago in terms of multifamily housing versus the issues with providing municipal services is kind of flipped. And so the idea of more independent housing with less intensity wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, okay? I remember that's what I said a couple months ago. What I didn't expect when we had the proposal then is looking at anything around 100%. And again, as we talked about it, the more I kept thinking is this has so many issues and so many potential problems associated with it. I began to feel more and more uncomfortable with the whole concept of the changes that we're talking about. So I called Mary and I said, Mary, this is what I'm thinking. And she goes, well, at the staff level, we've been talking about some of these issues. okay? So it wasn't just me kind of having a bad Wednesday. So, so I just want to share with you a couple of these thoughts in terms of why I'm saying, and I asked Mary, I said, I think we need to tap the brakes on this thing. First of all, everyone on this commission understands we cannot make a decision based on whether land is taxable or not taxable. We can't make a decision about how it impacts municipal services. That's not our purview, that's the board, okay? And that's why we said, sure, let's change that parcel of land to allow the housing overlay district because it fits all the criteria, okay? However, beyond that though, I mean, the fact that I'm a trustee and I know this will go to the board and we have to consider how they're gonna look at things, I have to keep that broader perspective in as well. So as I started looking at this, first of all, we all know, Mary was saying it, is all of the changes that we're being asked to make to this ordinance that we spent about 1.5 years building, okay? It was a long process. Many of you will recall that. And it was, the current ordinance is based on the current model of senior housing facilities as it exists in the marketplace. The whole independent to assisted to memory care, step-up care. And so that's what we built it on. And again, it was not an easy process. And so what we're being asked to do is to change the ordinance at the request of an applicant. And now, my experience, 12 years on this commission, 6 years on the board, is every time we have changed an ordinance for one particular applicant, it usually backfires. And I can think of the property right next door to Kirkland as an example of that. Unintended consequences. And so as a policy-making process, that's never a good thing to do from the start. But do keep in mind that the property that we're talking about, that we're going to be talking about, it's already tax exempt. Okay? So it's not even an issue of whether it is or isn't. It's already tax exempt, which means that from a village perspective, it really doesn't matter whether that piece of property stays a grassy patch or has a 3-story building on it. There's zero benefit to the village for that building to be built. Okay? But changing the ordinance has a lot of potential risks to the village. And we talked about a few of those, and that's what I was dwelling on after the last meeting, is if we make the language where it's just a matter of allowing care providers to come into a facility to take care of somebody, it's a very low bar. And 55 age, which, as Mary said, statutory, is a very low bar. So the concern would be is, okay, someone wants to build multifamily units. They claim it as a senior facility because they're going to allow that in there. And then they start asking for tax exemption. And part of what also happened at the same time is, we are going through a process of updating the strategic plan, and I've been working with Scott on that. And one of the things that I tried to look at was, how much of the village is currently tax exempt? Any ideas how much of the village property is actually tax exempt right now?
Yeah.
29.5%.
I was gonna say 25, so.
29% of the village is already tax exempt, which means all of us sitting here that own homes, we're picking up the balance of all the costs to provide municipal services. So my concern is we don't want to do anything to any of our ordinances that's going to then make that worse. Because we already have, I mean, that's a very high number for municipality to have that much in there. So we got to make sure that when we're making changes to an ordinance, especially a new one, that we don't end up with those unintended consequences. Again, anytime we're dealing with the development should always be a win-win. There should be something in it for the village, there should be something in it for the developer. It's got to work on both hands or it doesn't work. And right now, changing this ordinance as we're being requested to do, I don't see a win for us at all. I literally am searching for how do we benefit. I can't find one. And that's my concern. Now, I am willing to talk about adjusting the provision in there that has the 50%. I'm okay if we give the plan commission some latitude, saying, well, we could do 55 or 60% or something like that, if we can define a criteria as to why we would do that. Because again, remember how this ordinance was built. The ordinance was built with the idea that we cap it at 50% because those people, in theory, as they age and need care, they move into assisted. Well, if you have 75 or 80% of the residents of independent, where are they going to go? I mean, that was the theory. I mean, that's the whole idea behind the way we structured that thing, okay? I think what we have to keep in mind is the request that we're being asked to make is because Kirkland has a business problem. And I think we all recognize it's a real business problem. And trying to get staff to do the work for an intense level of care that assisted living provides, it is hard. I mean, I see it where my mother-in-law is at. They have a real tough time trying to get care. I get that. But again, a business problem is not our problem to resolve. That's not our responsibility to fix it, okay? There might be some other options. I mean, we did ask about, well, if this were just an extension of Kirkland. You do the math on how many units they have in total, but they don't want to do that. For whatever their business reasons are, they want to keep it separate, and that's fine. Doesn't mean we have to change our ordinance to fix that. Okay? So, again, at this point in time, all of the language that Mary's been working on and trying to make this fit, I cannot support at all. I cannot even begin to do it. If we want to talk about how we want to adjust the percentage of independent, I'm okay with that. But, and again, I'm just trying to project a little bit. If we pass something based on some of the language that Mary has put together so far and it goes to the board, I don't think it's going to float very far. Because again, they have to take a look at the other impacts. So again, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a complete 180 from what we were talking about before, so I hate throwing you the curveball like that. But again, we got to make sure that we're not creating a problem down the road, and that's what I fear. And again, if we had an upside to this, I could take a risk, but I'm not seeing an upside.
Any other comments?
Well, I was just going to say that, I wasn't involved much, maybe in like right at the end of drafting this ordinance. And I'm assuming that we got to the 50-50 for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And that makes sense, having that continuum of care. And, if kind of the demographics, regionally, statewide, locally, countywide, a lot of the senior living facilities are higher than that 50%. Yeah, it would make sense to move that a little bit. But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the 100% either. So let's have a compromise and discuss and take a look at long term. Does it make sense to allow 60, 70? I don't know what that number is, and that's kind of we didn't know what that number was the last time we were here either. Everybody was kind of on board moving it some, but 100 seems too much. Is 50 too less? I don't know.
Greg, how did you guys come to 50?
Like I said, the rationale, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but the rationale is that if you have a facility that has like 100 units in it, and if you have 50% that are independent, and then the other 50% is assisted or memory care, if the idea of people going through a transition, they start off as independent, their health goes a little bit south, they then move into assisted. If you've got a huge number of independent, where do those people go if you don't have room for them in assisted living? So, right, I mean, start putting tents out in the yard. So, that's the rationale, is that the idea, the concept is moving people through this continuum of care.
I think,
Go ahead.
I think there was another basis that was considered. So it was, and they were equally important, as I recall, the fact that the commission did not want to create a new multifamily district by doing this. So in our multifamily district right now, maximum density allowed, 12 units per acre. So here in this overlay district, we said, we're doing this, 20 units per acre. So now all of a sudden you have this density bonus that well exceeds what we allow a multifamily developer to do. And the commission said, we definitely don't want this to act or look like a multifamily development. So the independent units, which is what apartment buildings are, they're independent units, they can be occupied by any age group, but still and all, 55 and up, again, can be an active age group. The commission didn't want to give this density permission and allow more than 50% to be independent units.
Yeah, is
So-
my memory needs to be jogged a little bit, but that was, the risk is allowing this and then someone comes and puts up, a building and just calls it independent living and, they give the benefit. And didn't we talk about possibly requiring a connection, like a physical connection to the existing property?
That was one of the things we talked about, was trying to do that.
I'm just trying to brainstorm, like, what would be a barrier to preventing what we don't want to have happening, but allow for these situations where physically, on the land, allow it to be connected so they can, expand their footprint and ability to treat a broader, client population, but restrict it physically by having a connection.
But again, that would imply a common business, and the property that we're trying to fix the ordinance for, they're purposely choosing to have that as being a separate business entity. So in theory,
So
it could be
become
spun
itself,
off and,
yeah.
and sold to a
Yeah,
third party,
totally
and so if you have a connection, how does that work? So again, we got to kind of think about what ifs
Yeah.
kind of down the road. But again, you got to look at the thing long-term, how it impacts other land uses, especially like across Ryan Street,
Yeah.
and what that could mean.
Question, what other potential parcels are we looking at here? We'll worry about down the road, are there potential issues?
Right across Ryan Street.
Right.
I've had
Any
discussions with
property zoned
developers.
B1 or B3 is eligible to ask for this overlay district.
Yeah.
Any other questions or
Yeah,
comments?
so Walmart goes out of business and they don't know what to do with the building, so they tear it down and build a senior housing facility there. I mean, that's what you got to think. Like, will it happen? No, but you know what? When I was a kid, if someone had told me Kmart and Sears would be gone, I would have said, you're nuts.
And you can stream.
Yet they
music.
are. What? No, like I said, it's we have an ordinance, we have it for a reason. And I feel for the folks from Kirkland in terms of trying to put something else out there, but again, we've got to do what is going to be in the best interest of the village. And if they can work within the ordinance, great. If they can't, and believe me, this is not the first time we've had to say sorry to a developer. I mean, it's like we're accused of that a lot, but but again, I see only downside with the proposed changes, and I already regret some of the changes we've done in the past, and I don't want to see more of this.
Yes, go ahead.
So, obviously, trying to catch up on litigation and COVID. So, Craig, I definitely hear you because there's not a win-win for us. But I think, I had written some questions down, but I think the part that you just said that I was scrolling just to try to figure out, so they're not gonna run it under Kirkland Crossing, they're gonna run it under a separate business.
Hey. Well, let's have our discussion first.
I think that's possibly one of the things, because a couple of the other things you said, and then of course looking at the property across the street, kind of similar to what they have up in Oconomowoc. Just kind of my question.
And again, Mary makes a good point with some of the things, not only the density, but the parking issue, in that, again, with the current ordinance based on the current model, very few people in assisted living own vehicles or drive them, more so on independents. So suddenly that whole formula for how we establish not just the density, but the parking is another issue. We're trying to meet the criteria that goes with our RM zones.
Well, and I think Mary's concern was about, if we put it to having it to be next to, and then of course she said connected, I thought those were some good. It's a very interesting, from a business perspective, it's a very interesting thought or proposal. I'm struggling personally and professionally, knowing how difficult it is to get persons into facilities and to keep persons into facilities. If you get a 1 room, a 2-room, so on and so forth, and then you need that continuum of care. I think it's a very creative way to actually address that issue for everyone, like all of us here moving forward. But yeah, I see the issue with it being a separate entity. That bothers me.
Well, my concern was when we were talking about possibly saying, well, if they're here and they're going to go here, they're kind of next to each other, what would prevent somebody to come in and put in, let's say, a 40-unit place, and they've got all 3 in there, but then they come back 2 years later and say, well, we want to build this 100-unit, and we want it all, that type. They're next to each other. How are we going to say no? So I'm with Craig. I think if we want to maybe do a little bit of work on the 55, 60%, something like that. I believe both units, both developments are still going to be Kirkland. It's just they don't want to attach both of them for reasons which is not privy to us. But anyway, I can't go along with this with the 100%. Maybe 60 I could consider, but that would probably be about it.
And do keep in mind, if we go that route and we change it, I mean, we have another owner in the back who's here for a different business reason, but it revolves the housing project, the senior housing project we already approved, that he could come back and want to make his changes to his as well. So, I mean, again, this has implications. No matter what we change on it, it has implications.
Are there any other comments?
I would rather, what's our action on this?
It's here for review and possible action.
So the action would be a recommendation to the village board, but if the board is inclined not to fulfill the request of the developer, the board, I assume, could take no action. No recommendation is forwarded. The board wants to take an affirmative action to deny the request, they could do that too. But in operation, they both kind of work the same way. No action is really a denial.
I would prefer to table it and allow the developer a chance to maybe address some of our concerns that they've heard here tonight.
It is true, if you do deny it, the agenda item comes off, they would have to reapply. If you want to give the applicant an opportunity to work with staff on the issue further, then I would suggest taking no action.
Well, this particular item.
We have a table motion here.
Oh,
No.
I didn't present it.
Oh, okay, you didn't make the motion.
No,
Okay.
the issue, this agenda item isn't really anything to have to do with the applicant. We're talking about a change.
It is a change of the code, but it is from the applicant. It's not village initiated. It's a request of the applicant to change the code.
Okay.
So yes, you're right, it is a broader context, broader application, but the request itself did come from this applicant, not village initiated.
It does sound like we'd be at an impasse here in terms of we wouldn't solve any issues here tonight from what I'm hearing there, and that didn't take up our meeting, we went back and forth with this, so I'm gonna make a motion to table it so to allow the developer a chance to discuss the concerns that are seated.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Roll call vote, please. Jenna?
Yes. Commissioner Grabowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Haas.
Yes.
Commissioner Lang.
Yes.
Commissioner Belt.
Yes.
Trustee Roberts.
Yes.
President Knutson.
Yes. Okay, this is hereby tabled till the next meeting. Item C, should we continue with the discussion on C or wait till we have more information on it?
Yeah, you can't take action on this at this time as it does not comport to code.
That's what I assumed, but I did not want to make that.
Do we need to make a motion to table that one?
It stays on the table until it's removed by the commission. So
There was,
Oh,
it was tabled before.
It was tabled at the last meeting. It's not taken up. Just move on.
Okay.
Okay, then we're gonna go to review and pass, oops, no.
6A, are we on 6A?
Yeah, 6A, review, discussion, and possible action regarding site plan details within the Matter Development Senior Housing Project as approved through conditional use grant back in 2022. This 4.7 acre B3 office service business district with a housing for the elderly overlay HGO zone property project is located at the northwest corner of Swan Road and Highway 164. The property owner is Matcap SL Pewaukee LLC. Mary, I guess I'll let you go with this. Or
I'll turn it over to
Or
Scott
should I go with
or
Tim?
Tim.
Well, you've got before you the action taken by the Plan Commission with regard to the conditional use grant approval. There was a brief conversation or dialogue between the city's Director of Public Works Engineer Maggie and Tim Barbeau with regard to consideration of Excel, decel, and our bypass lane. You got a copy of the site plan that was approved by the commission as part of the conditional use grants. And then earlier this evening, Director of Public Works Wagner did opine on, if I understood correctly, not needing not needing a bypass, thank you. I was confused, but encouraging Plan Commission consideration of an Excel and decel lane. As to what those are technically, I'll defer to Tim to talk through that. But big picture, the developer and staff are looking to the commission to provide direction on how to proceed on that matter. If it's something that you would like to have added to the site plan for consideration as a commission, or basically go with the original approval for the site plan as it is.
Yeah, so for the commission's benefit, we're here on just that narrow item as to the request of the city to modify the approval to include these requirements for essentially traffic-related mitigation, and Tim will talk about the technical, but it's here again because when the commission made its approval, that was based upon information provided by Tim in his report and others that none of this would be needed from his perspective and his opinion. Obviously, that information has now changed. And before we put that onus on the developer, we thought it would be prudent to bring that back to the commission with this new information to weigh in. So we're here just on that issue within the CUG itself.
Anyone on the commission would like to make a comment at this time, or Tim, did you have a comment?
Well, I just want to, I can just reiterate just some of the issues related to this particular one. Senior living facilities, we even talked about it just before about, the parking, the number of vehicles and things like that. So senior living typically does not operate as far as traffic the same way you would see a retail type facility. You don't have the traffic typically in the peak hour, which is typically 6 to 8, and then 4 to 6 at night. So you don't get those real heavy traffic concentrations at that time. So that's usually the times where you evaluate intersections and the improvements to intersections to make the traffic flow and to minimize the delay. And so generally speaking with senior housing, our traffic staff would say that, you know, it doesn't generate enough traffic to really cause necessarily a delay in the traffic as much. So, and that's why our traffic engineer would say it's, those improvements of decel and acel lanes would not be needed. And all that would do is, it would get traffic coming from the north, off the lane so other traffic can pass through to make the turns into this facility, as well as when they turn out of the facility, it gives them a little bit of lane to accelerate, to get up to speed, to get onto Swan Road in that case. So the bypass lane would have caused a lot more issues because of left turning lanes into the facility, as well as left turning lanes into Broken Hill. There's double driveways that are spaced far apart. If you saw the plan, there's a plan up there.
Yep.
They're spaced far apart, so it just creates a little bit more conflicts for that left turning movement. And how do you do that with a bypass lane? It gets a little tricky for that. You know, our position right now is it's not needed. If you were to decide that should be put in, I'm not going to be opposed to it, to be honest with you. But is it, from a technical standpoint, is it needed? No. But I can let Maggie speak to that as well. So.
Anyone?
I would like to hear Dr. Wagner's.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So our opinion is this is one of our local collector / arterial roads for Pewaukee. It takes a lot of traffic. It is an alternate basically to 164. So it does receive a lot of traffic. There is a lot of development that is happening to the north and will continue to happen to the north because there is quite a bit of land yet to be developed in that area. So it's our opinion that traffic is only going to increase. And right now, this roadway, the last traffic count on it had about 1,100 cars average daily count on it, which is more than just your standard residential roadway. So it's our opinion that we do want to make sure that we keep that traffic moving on Swan Road because it is our collector road. And given how close this development is to that intersection of Swan Road, which is the feeder to the subdivisions that are occurring north of this, I would really highly recommend that at a minimum the XL decel lanes be added to this, especially given that the traffic coming in and out will be of an older generation, is a little bit more hesitant in this type of roadway, which has a speed limit of 35 miles an hour. So we want to give them that safe opportunity to pull off and be able to make that turn safely, as well as accelerate back up to the traffic.
Okay, so if we're doing XL, decel only, that's only going to affect traffic coming north-south bound then? So like if I'm going north coming off of 164, go past Broken Hill onto the new, there's not going to be any change in traffic pattern on that side of the road.
Correct. Nothing on the east side of the road for Broken Hill.
Okay.
I think Broken Hill already has a right turn decel lane. I think to the first entrance, which is their entrance.
Which is the entrance you should be using. Right. It's kind of a one way.
Yep.
Well, the signs say one way, but you got to find them a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the residents know there's one way in on the south side and hopefully out the other way, but
right. It's
wide enough for several vehicles to get in and out. So yeah, that would not be affected. It would only be affected on the west side. And it would be the north, the southbound traffic decelling and making the right turn, or the southbound traffic accelerating as you go.
As they come out of the neighborhood, or out of the facility. So then, as you're coming in, if you're coming in from 164 going north on Swan and you're making a left turn, there's a whole bunch of traffic coming the other way. Everybody's going to get backed up there. And that's where the bypass lane would have. Okay.
I know nothing about traffic flow, so this will be like a 2-second tutorial. is there like a threshold where you guys would use, say you said 1,100 cars, is there like a threshold where above 1,100 or 1,500, you definitely require these or suggest these? And then is it possible to, I know it's a guess, but like to forecast what future development would do to that 1,100 count that you guys had?
Yeah, we did not do a traffic study in this area, and that would kind of lead to the answers that you're asking, because there is ways that you can project future traffic on there, but there wasn't done, and it wasn't done on our behalf because this didn't come through our plan commission or our municipality, and it's my understanding that the village did not require one either for this development. So I can't really give you those great numbers. As far as like standard thresholds, there isn't necessarily one. There's some guidelines that we typically follow, and what we follow is, you know, on these local arterials, we do try to allow that additional space for that traffic to make those turning movements as much as we can, so we can keep that general traffic moving, so that we don't cause issues with any traffic accidents or frustrate drivers more than what they already are from having to stop and wait for someone to turn.
You guys required decent cell lanes for Swan View.
Correct, as well as a bypass lane.
What's Mary, what's the density? Remember you have the density at the, or what, how many units in that facility?
141.
140.
You're 41, right?
I think it's 141.
It's 140 something,
141.
141. Thank you.
Do we have an opportunity to speak?
It's up to the commission,
What's that?
but it's up to the commission.
The developer asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
Let
like
us
to
have
hear-
our discussion if we can.
Yeah, we'll do the discussion and we'll get back, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
I clearly can see that in arrow on the top driveway to the north, is that an out arrow on the bottom one? So is there an expected travel pattern here?
Yeah, there
Yes,
is. In
yes.
one of our conversations with staff, we went from two-way traffic to one-way traffic to kind of mirror what is happening with Broken Hill subdivision. So those who exit ours will exit Broken Hill off the north entrance. We will enter off the north entrance. We exit off of the south entrance. They enter out of the south entrance. And the reason for that was to spread out that so there wasn't any.
Thank you, everyone. I definitely had issue with this traffic pattern when this was being proposed. While the speed limit is 75, that is a great hill to come down. 35.
75.
That is a great hill to come down.
You got me caught on that
So
one.
is that what you do?
We might want to put a traffic camera over there.
Might catch a little here. No, so I know that was one of my concerns, and obviously, and thank you for also stating it, you know, based on our type of residents that are going to be living here and those visiting are a little more hesitant to be coming in and out of spot. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm definitely for the diesel and XL. I think that's a nice compromise to what we discussed earlier about this.
Any other comments right now? Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, let's keep in mind, and to reiterate a lot what Tim said, is these developments don't generate a lot of traffic. Okay, and Teresa will remember this, when there was a development that was trying to go in the middle of the village, we did a traffic study. Okay, and the traffic study said, yeah, these don't generate much traffic. And there were citizens concerned that there were some flaws in the study, and so they asked for a redo. And so we hired another engineering firm to do an audit of the first one, and they came up with the same conclusion, is these facilities don't generate a lot of traffic, okay? And so I think that's pretty well established that, you know, and like Tim said, the travel times that do exist, they're not during the typical, you know, rush hours, if Pewaukee has a rush hour. And if there's going to be much traffic, it's probably business deliveries and things like that during the day. The thing that I kind of took note of here is what the city was sharing is it's because of their developments that there's concern of traffic. It's not our developments, it's developments in the city. So I'm looking at just the way the road goes, so that if somebody is heading south on Swan and they're going to turn in to the development, yeah, they may slow down the road, but they don't have to stop. They just slow down and turn. Same as they would for Shepherd of the Hills Church. Same as they would for any of the individual residents that live on Swan. Because I'm sure those don't have slow down lanes for their homes either. Okay? It's just the way you go when you're doing a right-hand turn. The issue could happen if you're going north on Swan. You might have to stop. If there's traffic coming down, you have to stop before you turn. But again, then that is either going to be handled by what already exists there, or it's going to be on the city side of the property, not on the village side. And again, how much of that's going to be there? You know, before COVID, when I was going to work every day in the office, I passed by Kirkland every single day, unit pretty much the same size as the Matter one, and never once, I never saw any traffic at that stop sign. It just wasn't there. So I look at it saying, I don't want the village to have to incur any of those kind of costs to develop that, and I really, especially for a southbound side, I just don't see the necessity of doing that and asking the developer to incur those costs. I don't see it, especially when we're not generating the programs that are creating the traffic.
Or we wouldn't be the village would not, that would be requiring that. Oh.
Yeah, either or, but I'm just saying is, we're not creating that. If the developments were ours, if all those subdivisions going up on Swan were ours, and we're saying, yeah, the other things that we did are causing it, yeah, it'd be a different story, but we're not causing that.
Well, I know, but I mean, I don't think we have to talk about cause. It's a shared road, you know, it's a road that has, you know, traffic, and where the traffic comes from. I mean, it's not us. I think we just have to look at it from the actual developments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't think where the traffic comes from is inconsequential. We just have to look at it from the point of, would this development need things because of the traffic in particular generating.
See, I would see more of a cause on the east side needing one because we have people going against traffic. Someone coming south, they're just going to slow down to turn. They don't need to stop. But why do you need a de-acceleration lane there? I mean, think about it. There's homes along Swan, individual homes. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to slow down and turn into their driveway. Someone's going to come down and turn into Shepherd of the Hills Church. Same thing, no different. So why incur that burden on the developer on a plan we've already approved?
Anyone else? I'm thinking along the same lines of Craig here, that this was approved a year ago, and now all of a sudden the city is coming to us because they developed the Swan area. And I don't know how many homes are going to go back there. I've heard different amounts, but it's going to generate probably 4 times the amount of traffic that's going to come out of the senior living on a daily basis. And that's what's going to cause the problem turning left into the senior living, is the amount of traffic coming from the north to go to 164. If the Swan development wasn't over there, I don't think there'd be a problem. We looked at this before, and we looked at it from our standpoint as far as how much traffic is this development going to make. And looking at all the statistics and that, and as Craig said, you can go down, I live over by Kirkland, and I agree with him. I don't think I've seen maybe 1 car at that stoplight or stop sign when I come home or gone out or anything like that. I don't see a huge amount of traffic coming out of there. So I don't feel the developer or the village should have to do any type of road construction up there to take care of a problem that the city did because they added Swan development. And also they have the other development there. It's just one of these things that, yeah, I would love to help the city out, and if they feel that there should be a left turn lane there, I'll be more than happy to help them shake their hand and say, good job, you can do this for us. We appreciate that. But I don't think we should put, after it's been approved by the planning commission, the village board, for our developer to do this, based on the facts that were known at this time when it was approved. Now we go back to them and say, oh, by the way, the city, because they put these huge developments up here to the north, they want us to do this and you're gonna have to pay for it. That's not right. Like I said, the only reason that there's gonna be a backup going left is because of the amount of traffic that's gonna be coming from the north down, from all those subdivisions. Because if they're single-family homes, you're looking at a minimum of 2 cars, probably per day, maybe even more, if the kids have cars. So I don't think it's right. I don't feel we should have to do anything. Yes?
Okay, so I can talk, because I didn't approve that development.
Right.
I was against it. The 2 examples you both bring up clearly is the stop sign by Kirkland. That's not Ryan Street. So you're talking about, they've already left their facility, they're already on a road, and they're coming up to a stop sign. So that's no different than them coming up to the stop sign at 164 and Swan. We're talking about people leaving the apartment complex, the senior housing complex, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about them leaving that. I did bring up several times during that meeting that I feel that this is a safety issue. Now, whether or not the village's, the city is now having another development back there, they've taken the responsibility and putting in their XL and DCell for that area. I think it's a nice responsibility to come to us on a safety issue and come forward and say, did you consider this? And I think we can all sit here and talk about that, but I think it's a real issue. I've also discussed the fact that we talk about, one of the big things that we talked about is how these people are gonna go to Walmart and Pick and Save and walk over. And I've asked about where are the sidewalks across the street? Where is the ability for that patient, that housing person to come over with their walker, come over with their cane, come over with their wheelchair, walk with a family member, and when they get across the street, they now get to walk in traffic, right alongside traffic to get into the parking lot.
That's not our development, that's a private development.
Absolutely.
And that is up to them to make that if they so desire to do that.
I hear that, but what I'm saying is this is our village, this is our space, and we're being asked to consider a safety issue.
Actually, that road is the city's road. That half of the road is the city's.
The
Swan is split right in half. The west side is the village, the east side is the city's.
So they're coming forward now that they know about it, and they're asking on their side of the road to have?
No, our side. So
On their side, but
No, that's okay.
no, I mean, look, I think, I agree with Jeff and President Knudsen. I think
on the city side of the road. Okay.
it sounds like it's not a safety, it sounds like the recommendation is it's not really needed. And the traffic that, it would be posing, let me rephrase this. Commissioner Grabowski, made a mention about like, the traffic that is going to be affected by this is kind of the result of the development to the north. And I don't personally think it's fair for the developer to have to carry that tax after we've already provided approval for it.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't even know if this is an option. If the city feels it's a safety issue and they want to, do it, maybe they can pick up the tab, because it is convenient. It is very nice of them to come and say, hey, this is a safety issue. We really think you should do it. But when it comes to actually who's going to pick up the tab, I certainly don't want to pick up the tab, and I don't think it's fair for the developer to pick up the tab. If they think it's a safety issue, then maybe it's something they can consider, but I don't know. I just don't see it being an issue.
Okay. I have one last question for whoever.
Okay.
So there's an accident there, bad accident, someone dies. We've discussed this here. Family, do they have any possibilities of coming back to us because we didn't consider this safety issue? Or we did and we chose to ignore it?
Well, it's not being ignored, it's being discussed. I mean, you're having a good faith discussion about it in the context of a land use development. Whether any liability would attach to that for a vehicle accident 5-10 years down the road, I don't see a nexus there, to be honest with you. And I don't think that should really inform the decision. I think you should have the broader context of, yes, this should be a safety discussion, but any sort of legal liability for the village, I don't think that should be the basis of the discussion.
Okay.
I mean, Teresa, if you think about it, someone's driving south, they're gonna turn into the development, and someone comes over the hill 75 miles an hour and hits the back of them, okay, that's on the person that sped.
Right.
And I mean, if it makes you, and I completely appreciate your position, if it makes, Commissioner Roberts said something to the effect, the house is just north of that on the west side of Swan, coming from the north, have the same burden and have the same risk, if you will. Because I don't see, 10 cars an hour going into this development, much less I don't see 10 cars, even 2 cars going into a house to the north. So either way, someone's gonna have to slow down, turn, and potentially back up traffic, but it's a moment in time, because I just don't see the volume of cars going into that development from the north being that big of a burden. Maybe you can argue from the south, so coming off of 164, but again, they're crossing over from traffic coming from the north, and I just don't know if that's gonna be that big of an issue.
So in the picture up on the screen, going into Broken Hill, those are considered decel and excel lanes?
Just
entrances.
just on the south, from the south going north, the
Okay,
first
so
one
the new
in.
development, Broken Hill doesn't have XL decel.
Broken Hill has a decel lane, it does not have an XL lane.
Okay, so there is space right there where okay.
This is the decel lane that's there. This has it has a gentle curve, but it's not an XL lane.
It's a Tesla XL lane.
Yeah.
So I guess, if that's a decel lane, what's, in the current roadmap of what the developer currently has, it looks like it's like rounding the corner off and adding a little more pavement, like what's the increase in cost to us in the village or to the developer to what looks like, rounding a quarter instead of having it as a 90, is kind of what I'm seeing. And maybe I'm looking at it completely wrong, but just out of curiosity.
So let's just say this had thousands more vehicles on it, the acceleration lane could be as long as 150 or 200 feet, and then it would taper into this is a little tricky because it's on a curve, but it would potentially do that. The bypass lane, if that was put in, it would be probably about a 100-foot taper, and then maybe a stretch of about 100 or 200 feet. It kind of, to be honest with you, there'd have to be an analysis by a traffic engineer to say how long should those lanes be. So it's one thing to say we're just going to have a taper, kind of a decel lane that kind of just splits off earlier and just widens out the roadway a little bit, or on the south side there into Broken Hill. That's actually an extra lane. So you could have someone slowing down to go into Broken Hill and someone passing them at 75 miles an hour. Or, you're not coming that one down. So I mean, that's what a decel lane would do for Broken Hill, is if that person's going to turn, it gets totally off the pavement, but that's a pretty substantial distance there, I would say. Do you know offhand? I suppose you don't.
Well, even the
Couple hundred feet?
existing deacceleration lane that's on the, what direction am I talking about? On the city side.
East side.
East side,
East
thank
side.
you. That's not gonna, even the way it is right now, that's not going to address if somebody is stopping to make a turn. Because even if they could pull into there, the median strip doesn't have one. So unless they're turning into Broken Hill, they can't go anywhere anyway.
Correct.
So the existing one, if that's the purpose, is to allow someone to go around someone that's stopped to make a left-hand turn, that's not gonna cut it either.
That's
About 215 feet of road.
right.
215?
The one that's gonna be, ultimately
Okay.
gonna be out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there were, they're.
Okay, but further above, but either way, I mean, there would have to be a wider path cut into the median even on the east side to accommodate for someone that's gonna turn left into the facility.
Which would require purchasing the property off of Broken Hill.
Not necessarily. That's all right of way.
Okay.
So that can be done. I mean, there's plenty of right of way out there to make all these improvements.
So for me, it is the factor of the traffic and who's responsible for the traffic doesn't play into my decision. Because the traffic's there, no matter where it's coming from. But that we relying on our own engineer and his recommendations along with the traffic studies that we've done in the village, going off with actual numbers, don't produce a peak. I would be inclined to require that. That's it.
Did we have questions, or did the developer, do you guys want to?
It's up to the board if they want to hear from the developer.
Is there anything you guys feel you need to comment on? Okay, no, they don't.
Could I just clarify one thing?
Sure, go right ahead.
So the traffic counts that I cited to you earlier was prior to the development of the Swan Road. It included the Broken Hill development, but I believe those traffic counts were 2019 or 18. So it was prior to the development to the north. My point of bringing that development to the north in was that the traffic is only going to increase on this roadway. So it already has that 1,100 cars a day before that development. And you know, my personal opinion is that because this is a collector road, it's not just those people that are using this roadway. There's a lot of other people that are using the roadway. It's not specific to Pewaukee residents. So I just wanted to clarify that that traffic count was prior to the development, but it's just going to continue to get worse or get larger as future development occurs along this roadway.
I'd like to thank Director Wagner for bringing this up to us.
Yeah, thank you.
And having this good, allowing us to have this good discussion here.
I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
Is a no action action?
Well, in this case, so we're looking for direction, and I think because there's been kind of a change in circumstances since the original approval, I think there should be at least a motion to give staff direction on how to proceed.
Would someone like to make something?
I'm trying to think of what we would say.
Not it.
If the commission's direction is to proceed with the original, the site plan is originally approved, that would be appropriate.
That would be an appropriate motion.
Okay, I will make a motion to continue with the development as previously approved for the senior housing project that previously was approved.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is hereby carried. Item B, review, discussion, and possible action on conditional use grant request of property owner applicant Nick and Jill DiCardo to replace the existing front deck on their home with a new deck that would extend into the required 35-foot setback area on the lot. This .20 acre property located at 468 Spring Street is zoned R5 single family residential. Mary?
Sure. The applicant has an existing front deck with, which transitions steps down to some in-grade masonry type steps or stone timber that really is built right into grade. They need to replace that deck at this time, and as a part of doing that, what they'd like to do is expand the size of the deck a little bit. Instead of extending out 10 feet, the new deck will extend out 14 feet, plus it will have a new set of stairs that will go down and tie in eventually to those timbers, but that adds 7.5 feet to the overall encroachment north or off the front face of the building. So ultimately, the setback reduction request is down to 24.4 feet, where the code would ordinarily require 35 feet. So he could expand his deck in other ways or replace it within its existing footprint without having to get a conditional use permit approved. But in this particular case, this seems like the best overall solution for them. So, and like Nick said under comments, he's here to answer any questions about, why the expansion and so forth. But the code minimum 10-foot setback from the side yard is maintained under the proposed plan. So if the commission is inclined to allow the modest expansion of this deck resulting in an encroachment in the front yard setback, my recommended conditions you would consider attaching include just issuance of a building permit before start of any work, recording the conditional use grant before issuance of the building permit, and village engineer review and approval of any grading drainage plans for the site if and as necessary as a part of the deck project. And I know the engineer made a report on this. I'll turn it over to him and then the commission.
Yep, pretty simple. I just took a look at the site out there. It's a very small expansion of the deck. This land drops down. The water's going to go towards Spring Street or towards his driveway. For the most part, I believe that there's a slight swale on the north side, kind of that northeast side of the house, that takes water towards Spring Street as well. The additional hard surface is not going to be significant for any particular drainage issues. It doesn't fall into our stormwater requirements as well. So I think that it won't negatively affect the existing drainage pattern that's out there right now.
Any questions or comments from the planning commission?
I don't personally see an issue with it. I do notice that there are 2 trash receptacles in the picture facing it. I'm just saying. I mean, I know it's not on the topic and it's not on the agenda, but it is there in the picture.
I only,
No, so I personally don't have an issue with it. I think.
Jeff, go ahead. Mine's more of a technical question. I mean, as far as what's there, it doesn't encroach on anyone. They had a public hearing, so the neighbors got notified, and they're not here complaining. So, I mean, I'm not concerned with that. But Mary, you got to help me remember. So, is the current deck? Is it considered legal non-conforming?
The current deck conforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, and I'm trying to remember because I know it does involve us, it's like the board of review or something. If it's a legal non-conforming and we make it more non-conforming, we can't do that.
Right.
Right. But it's conforming, so that's not the issue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can't expand it again.
So don't let it burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it looks like, your current steps are going to still tie into the other current steps.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the other piece to this too, if you don't mind, the last 4 steps of that railroad I'll call like a timber log, they get very slippery, right? And especially in the wintertime. And there's no railing system going down those last 4 stairs. So this new proposed, deck expansion, yes, it would take the existing deck from 10.8 inches or 10 feet 8 inches out to 14 feet. But then the steps going down would have a railing system all the way down to that flat level in line with my grass.
Oh,
So it'd be better for safety purposes as well for, you know, friends and mail carrier coming over to my house in the wintertime too.
I think all of us live in this residential info district here, with almost all these lots are legal non-conforming. There's no, everything unfortunately needs a variance to be able to actually clear. So I have no issues with it. In fact, and I would like to actually write number 3 from the recommendations for a grading drainage plan, needed because I don't think that's required. Drainage and actually probably should put the onus on the homeowner to produce a topographical survey of for that.
Not creating any issue to you, Tim? Okay.
Not for this, no.
Okay.
Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve with the recommendations of number 1, number 2.
You do have a second?
Teresa.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck. Have fun.
Party.
We'll be all over. Review and possible action on conditional use grant amendment request of property owner applicant Century Abrams LLC DBA Chick-fil-A to convert portion of the existing site landscape area into paved outdoor seating area. This 2.09 acre property located at 1454 Capitol Drive is zoned B1 Community District with a planned unit development PUD overlay. Mary?
Sure. So this is the Chick-fil-A site over on Capitol Drive, and they have an existing landscaped area at the northeast corner of their building that separates, right now, it separates the parking lot on the east side of the building from the existing outdoor dining space on the north side of the building. And what they would like to do is convert this 435 square foot space out of what is a stone-filled planting area into additional outdoor seating and tie it in physically with the existing tables outdoors. So the expansion area would allow for the addition of 7 4-seat tables, and the existing area already provides for 6 4-seat tables. Really, from the standpoint of 435 square feet of transition, it opens up a lot of opportunity for them in terms of the number of people who can sit outdoors now, and really takes away very little in terms of the overall site landscaping. Recommendations, as written at the time this, as I wrote them at the time this report was done, were that the existing railings that surround the existing outdoor seating area will be the railings that must be continued around the perimeter of the new seating area. Number 2, that the new tables, chairs, umbrellas, and other related appurtenances to be placed in this new seating area will match and complement the existing outdoor furnishings in the existing outdoor seating area. Number 3, the required green space parking lot landscaping for the site as set forth in the original CUG on the site must be reduced by an amount equal to the extent of the new paving to be put out in support of this new seating area project. Number 4, that the work in support of the project cannot begin until the conditional use grant and land covenant are recorded, signed and recorded. And number 5, any building permits or anything else or similar permits required be pulled before the start of any project work. So at the time I drafted this report, I was not aware of concerns from any of the neighbors with respect to a vista that does give them a look down on the project or on the rooftop of this building and some others apparently in the development to the HVAC that's on the rooftop. Nor was I aware that there were concerns with employees gathering after hours and hanging around the site, playing loud music, disturbing neighbors. So that's the kind of thing that we do say in our conditional use permit, any substantiated material adverse impacts arising as a result of this use, right? But we can bring you back in and talk to you about having to mitigate whatever these nuisance effects are, or we talk about whether we still like this conditional use permit. So I would say we have that to fall back on with respect to the nuisance issue of the noise, but I would probably start by suggesting back to this particular neighbor who sent us the email that she may want to make some calls to PD to report out there when this is happening and try and curb the issue that way to begin with. And if that isn't met with any success, then I think we would come back. And if she continues to maintain, or if she maintains that they are continuing to cause this problem, then I think we would, of the village's own volition, put them back on the agenda for review and discussion. With respect to the HVAC, I do recall that when we approved this project, we did take care, and the topic came up a number of times, about how are we going to conceal this rooftop HVAC? Because there is virtually no way to conceal it from the houses that sit up on that hill to the south. And so we said within a certain number of feet distant from the buildings, you must not be able to see the HVAC on the rooftops. And I didn't have time to go through and look for any supporting correspondence or staff reports or anything of that sort to support that at this point, but we will definitely double back on it and work with the residents who spoke tonight and sent the email.
Tim?
Yeah, this is pretty simple. It's a small area. You know, if they put concrete on there, it's just going to flow to their existing storm sewer system. They've got stormwater ponds on site. I'm sure that they'll be able to accommodate this small amount of water on that. So I have no issues with the drainage. They won't be causing any new drainage. It'll just be more water going into the system.
Any comments from the plan? Yes, sir.
No issues. I think obviously outdoor dining, as we see downtown and across, is more popular. People will do that, and that's fine. And with regards to the residents' concerns, obviously we have to take a concern appropriately, but as Mary stated, I mean, we would have to, they would need a 15-foot parapet wall on top of that building to try to hide the HVAC. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to from that position, from that high up of an angle looking down, there's no way to hide that. You know, with regards to the noise, it's what we're looking at here tonight is expanding the patio area for dining during business hours. Noise that is occurring after hours by employees, I feel is just a simple remedy of either talking to the manager or calling the police. If that noise is happening now, it's not getting louder or it's not going to change by adding more picnic tables. It's going to be the same, and I feel that's those issues of expanding a patio versus noise from employees who are getting off of work are mutually exclusive. But I mean, obviously it should be dealt with if it's a nuisance, but I don't feel that would weigh in any of my decisions tonight to approve this.
Any other comments?
I would agree. I don't have any problem with what's being presented tonight, and I think the separate issues, we've made it clear that we should follow up with property owners and the management of the site to make sure that it's taken care of.
Yeah, from what Mary's saying, that, you know, it sounds like they have, they're still underneath their conditional use grant when it comes to the HVAC. In the noise, it doesn't have anything to do with the CUD, and I would hope that, you know, the neighbors would, you know, try to try to accommodate that in your order of talk to manager, then call police.
I'm sure
But
I just yell, shut up down the hill every spot, my pleasure.
they might.
Or something.
Or something, yeah. But as far as expanding the patio, I guess my question is, and it's just the way things are always worded. Number 3, with them reducing their footprint by that 435, how much does that impact the total green space of that area? Is that something that we should, be making them make up other places, or?
I think it's so minimal that's why I wrote the condition that way. So what it's saying in condition number 3 basically is that by this amendment, the required green space for that lot is hereby reduced by 435 square feet.
Because it's such a huge square footage of a property, moving 435 feet down, it doesn't really change the percentage of green space much.
Minimally,
Okay.
minimally. But at
I'm
the
glad
time
you
this
asked
was
that, 'cause I
approved,
was thinking you meant the opposite, like, no, you have to increase it and decrease it, but now that you explained it, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Any other comments? Sir, you had your hand up. Are you with Chick-fil-A?
I'm the owner of this location here. I just wanted, I could actually explain if we need to agree.
Do you want to come up?
Yeah, you wanna go-
You want to come to the microphone?
Come up here, state your name for the record.
So my name's Kyle Martz. I'm the franchise owner of the Chick-fil-A here in town. So I could actually address the nuisance issue. I've actually had many conversations with that resident and provided security footage showing that there haven't been team members even out there when she has had those concerns. So if I need to address that at a later date, I can absolutely and kind of provide all the footage and everything too. And then the only other thing I wanted to assure everybody of was the actual green space that we would potentially be losing. Last year, I already, in hopes of this, relocated, or not relocated, but added that additional green space to the rear part of our property along the shared road. So within our lease line, we added essentially more than what we would lose from this space, just to try to be prepared for it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments from the board, commission? If not, I'd like to get a motion.
Make a motion to approve for the planner's recommendations.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I guess we're done for the night then, Item D is review, discussion, and possible action recommendation to village board on proposed changes to the residential infill overlay district as referred to plan commission by village board. Mary, did you want to take this, or Scott, or who wants to do it?
I can kick it off,
Okay.
but I would expect former trustee Hill would.
Not forward yet, not until next week. Monday.
All right. I would expect trustee Hill will help walk you through this as well.
Well, Mary, let me just start off. We talked about this at village board last week. What the village board, if I'm wrong, right, has referred to the plan commission is to establish a percentage of the number of lots that will be allowed to be less than 75 acres. That's what I heard, what the motion was by Chair Grabowski.
I don't know if his motion was that narrow. I think that's what he was interested in us discussing, but I think in terms of what's on the agenda, it's any of those items.
I think we're going to get, I thought that at the end of the day, I realized that the other items that were on there as far as increasing minimum lot sizes, changing the numbers wasn't going to go anyplace at this commission. I thought my focus would be on what is the criteria for going from the lot size, the minimum lot sizes that are specified, allowing, the village allowing for the reduced lot size.
what's the criteria? And there should be a minimum percentage or maximum percentage of those lots that are below 7,500 square feet.
So are you specifically referring to this
Yeah.
paragraph?
That part of it, Mary, is, the changes that are in blue, to me, that's off the table. I don't think it's gonna go anyplace in this commission, so why waste your time? Okay?
Okay,
The focus goes with regards to 40.367.5.
okay, that's where I am. Yep.
We
So-
talk about the village may allow for lot sizes to go down to 7,500 square feet.
Yep.
What is the criteria? And as I heard from the board last week, the recommendation forwarding to the commission was we should establish a percentage of houses that can be less than 7,500 square feet.
Okay. I didn't take very careful notes because I did a lot of talking at that board meeting. But I don't recall that was established as the instruction to the planning commission to set up criteria for that. But to look at this, I guess I'll rely on,
Unfortunately, I wasn't there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a big cop-out, but,
But we can address that question, as straightforward as that, I guess. And basically what this paragraph says is,
well, right.
no, what this paragraph says right now, and what I think Trustee Hill is saying is that he's pulling all these blue comments back now and saying, you know what, let's not go into the weeds. Let's address this one issue that I'm concerned about. And he says, so the village can permit an average lot area as low as 7,500 square feet per single-family resident. In this instance, redevelopment projects are defined as, and these are projects where a percentage of building value is torn down and replaced by these new developments. So in both the case of the Glen at Pewaukee Lake and the Riverside plat, those are both redevelopment projects. They involve tearing down a substantial bit of structure and replacing it with new development. So in the case of redevelopment projects, by that definition I just gave you, that's what has to happen for you to be eligible to have an average lot area as low as 7,500 square feet. Then it says the village can approve the 7,500 square foot average lot size as described above, not as a vested right, but to be determined on a case-by-case basis. So we have said your minimum average lot size is a shall. You shall meet this minimum average lot size, 7,500 square feet. What Trustee Hill is suggesting is that there should be some maximum number of lots, because we say now below that, in no case shall any lot be permitted that's less than 7,000 square feet. What I think Trustee Hill is saying is, let's establish a maximum number of lots that can be that 7,000.
To be between that 7,000 and 7,500.
Right.
And what is the written justification to do that? How do you assess that? Right in your language, it says a case-by-case assessment of each development. How do you assess it? What's the criteria?
Village approval of the 7,500 square foot average lot size as described above shall not be viewed as a vested right, but shall be determined on a case-by-case basis with each development proposal.
Case-by-case assessment.
That's taking the global plat into account. That's what we mean by a case-by-case basis. That means looking at the plat in its entirety. Are you comfortable with this?
Tool. You have to have a methodology that's carried consistently through each development. How do you assess that this is a development?
Well, I guess it's the same way we review a subdivision plat. and which is essentially how we have reviewed these plats, both by their preliminary plat and eventually their final plat. We're looking at the entirety of how many lots are there? Do they meet the minimum 7,500 square foot average lot size? If they do, are you satisfied with, and clearly the commission was satisfied with the mix of how many were 7,000 square feet, how many were 8,000 square feet, how many were 14,000 square feet? You're establishing the village approval is not a vested right, meaning we aren't promising you that you're going to get this minimum lot size, but it's available. The commission can approve it, okay? So I don't know that we have to have criteria to do that. I think you're looking at the global plat, and
I would agree that I don't think criteria are necessary for this type of review, but I think what Trustee Hill is saying is the commission should have a discussion from a policy perspective. Are there criteria we want to see? So from a legal perspective, I would agree. You don't necessarily need to have a methodology. You can have this case-by-case assessment, but there is the concern, I guess, that Trustee Hill raises that you're doing that, but it is left then up to the policy discretion of the Plan Commission, which is allowable, but is that how we want to treat it?
gotcha. Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
And I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but some of this was based on the Riverside development to start with, and also then St. Mary's, that you're taking a piece of property that is in an area where you're not going to be able to use the development that is on the books for single-family homes. You're not going to be able to build a home like that and be able to sell it and be profitable for the developer and be actually developing it. By creating this type of district, we're actually putting in homes that are, well, not according to the St. Mary's project, but possibly the ones down at Riverside, that the first homeowner will be able to afford, and it's not a side-by-side where you got one common wall, although I believe we do say in here you can do that.
You can.
But this way you're getting as much use out of the property or land as you can, getting the best value out of the land for the village, and being able to not subsidize, but get the first-time home owner, hopefully a home and a lot that they can take care of, versus a side-by-side where, it's not that it's not acceptable, but when you look at what happened up at St. Mary's, I'm surprised at how many homes are built already and being built in this short of a time. I'm very excited, and I've talked to one person that bought up there specifically because he did not want to be in a side-by-side. He wanted his own home, his own property, but he didn't want to have to take care of it. So that's what he's got. And I think this is one of the reasons why we were looking at all these numbers and saying, okay, here's a piece of property that you're not going to be able to put a $2 million home on, but you could put these homes to get to that $2 million. So and the best use for the area. So I think that was one of the reasons, or a couple of the reasons why we back in 2000 did all this. And again, this is another one of those, it wasn't we came into one meeting and said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. This is over a long, long period of time.
And these
the
were
numbers
intentional.
went up and down and all over the place.
Yeah.
again, we can't go back to what has already been done.
Right.
When I look forward to the future and try to make some continuous improvement. That's
I guess, you know, when I read how this is written, to some degree, because let's face it, every single property that we deal with, it's a weird size, or it has DNR issues or something, you know, so it's not like a perfectly square piece of land that we can fit exactly nice size shape things on it. And so if I'm reading this right, I mean, the way the math goes is you first take the buildable area and you divide it by 8,500, and that's how many lots you got, right? So that's the average. But within that, you're going to have some wonky piece of land that, you know, needs to be bigger because of the shape of it, which means something has to be smaller. And so it's a bit of a Jenga to try and fit all that together. I mean, and I assume you provided this to us, right? Okay. Before I even looked at this on that topic, I'm thinking, well, if we had to pick a number out of there, just come up with a parameter, I would have picked like 25%. For the minimum size, and I think we're looking at 27 point something here for there. You know,
well, if you look at the Glen, it's actually more.
The Glen is 32.
Almost 33%.
Oh, I didn't look at the other side.
I was just going to say, though, too, that these were incentivized numbers, intended to incentivize people to expend the money it takes to demo these white elephant buildings that are sitting out there, that are zoned, you know, institutional. People have all kinds of ideas for the reuse of those properties, those buildings, that doesn't fit within the context of the surrounding residential neighborhoods. So these numbers were set to incentivize people to tear down old white elephant buildings and tackle these very small, uniquely configured, difficult infill development sites where, you know, we aren't going to TIF them. We're not going to put up a TIF because you can't. It's residential development, right? So you can't create a TIF to help support the excess costs. So the idea was to incentivize the developability of them as a way of assisting the developers, attracting the developers to do the project. So I think I now, thanks to Matt and Trustee Roberts, better understand the idea, and setting a minimum or a maximum percentage of a certain size lot in there wouldn't necessarily be a problem of any sort. Arriving at what that correct number is, we have some guidance based on what you've given us for the two projects we have.
And we don't, this is not a, you come to us and we're going to give it to you type of situation. We look at each one individually and say, okay, this is, you have to have a pretty good reason why you need to have this overlay district before we will give it to you. So it's not a given that anybody that walks in here, like across the street, let's say on Ryan Road, you got 13 or 14 acres there. I couldn't see that as a residential development overlay. There's just too much land there. There's just
doesn't meet the criteria because it's not a redevelopment. That's vacant land.
Yeah, that's true.
But you know, for the two that they were used for were perfect.
Right.
That's the point I think I land on. Like in this particular situation, it created an opportunity for that developer, and it maximized that opportunity. We had to make some concessions, and I understand what you're saying for sure, but I think it maximized the opportunity for that particular piece of land.
Well, I'll share with everyone the comments that I made at the board. You know, I am not in favor of reviewing the residential overlay district at all, for two reasons. One is we spent a year trying to create it, and we're just in the early stages of the first one. And as Jeff was saying, is, you know, they've got, when I go through there, I'm counting 19 houses already under construction at some way, shape, or form, which blows my mind in terms of how quickly that has gone. So I don't see that the market conditions, like people rejecting and going, oh, no, it's too small. I mean, it's people are buying into the concept. My view was, trying to change at this point might be just a little too early. We've got 2 in the works. They're not going to be changed, regardless of what we would change here. So to some degree, any change we make is kind of academic because we don't have another one in the pipe to look at. My view is, let's let this simmer for a bit. That especially once, because we're probably only a year away from having virtually the entire thing built out at the old St. Mary's School. Let's see what it looks like. I mean, yeah, we may, when it's all said and done, after all the landscaping is in and everything else, we may go, looks great. No need to change. On the other hand, we may look at it and go, ugh, we're sorry we did that. And then we make the changes, but I think it's just premature in trying to change things at this point. I mean, I would only be concerned about trying to put a specific parameter on it just because, all the redevelopment areas are they're so odd. They're challenging pieces of land, which is why they took so long to get going. And yeah, we need some flexibility, but again, the primary parameter is going to be divide the buildable land by 8,500, and that's how many lots you get, and then you got to figure out how to configure those. And you got to have some leeway to configure it.
Teresa?
I just have a question, because we do have obviously this redevelopment. Is there something that, because they are slightly different, is there something that we should consider because of their differences? And what I mean by that is we know that the Glens of Pewaukee are more condo stylish. They're going to take care of their own roads, their own everything else. But when we talk about the preserves, that then still, the onus then falls onto our public works and things of that nature. So is there something that we would want to consider if it's a redevelopment that they're taking care of, or a redevelopment that we're responsible for, that we would want some level of?
That was up to the developer, that they wanted that. They wanted that like to be up there, more of a retirement area.
Sure.
And they felt that because of the closeness of the downtown, they were going to be able to really hammer into the snowbirds and that type of individual. Where the one that's over here, the other development that has the overlay, they were at first looking at working class, first-time homeowner, somebody that doesn't want to spend $2,000 a month on an apartment or something like that, wants to buy a home. So you had 2 different ways, and I don't think, can we legally say if you're going to build this, we got to build it like this?
Well, no, and I would say that whole general topic of what you're talking about here, I think, is outside of what's been the scope of what's been referred to. So that's fine, but I would try to keep the scope of the discussion to what's been referred to you in terms of the proposed changes here, what's in the packet, and what Trustee Hill has verbally said here.
Are we not addressing the redevelopment piece of it?
What do you mean by that?
So we're talking about the verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
And do we need to set a percentage for density? And everyone has kept referring to, well, we're redeveloping.
Right.
So as opposed to new development, do we have a percentage based on a new development?
It's not that overlay.
That's outside the scope of this overlay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is for redevelopment parcels only.
Correct. I'm sorry, I'm not me speaking clearly. So if we're talking about the redevelopment piece of it, do we want to address if there are differences in the building types, where they're making it more condo type-ish, or they're making it more in single-family homes, but it is a redevelopment piece? Do we want to be able to say there's a certain percentage where we, as the village, have responsibility for the surrounding green space and the garbage and recyclable and the roads and everything else. We want to have a percentage stated on the ability to have homes under our stated 8,500 square feet. Because there is a difference, because it is redevelopment and it's two different types of building.
I hear what you're saying. And so what you're suggesting is that
I'm asking if
well,
that's something
I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that if it's like the Glen, where it's almost like a condo, smaller lots are fine because they're not taking care of it.
If you're taking care of it, that's all up to
It's
you.
privately done, that you can be smaller. If it's not that, if it's just a private neighborhood, each home is separate, the lots would need to be larger because each homeowner is taking care of their own yard. Because quite honestly, for Riverside, those people, I mean, both up at the Glen and down here, they're still gonna get their garbage picked up. The only thing that we're not doing up there is plowing the roads or fixing the roads if they go bad in 20 years, okay? So they're still gonna get utility bills for, for their electricity and their water and their sewer and their garbage pickup. We're still providing all that to the Glen. Okay. So it would, if we did a criteria based on the structure of the development, whether it's essentially a condo type thing or not, it's really then a matter of okay, who's taking care of the yard? Is it the homeowner or is it the condo association or the homeowners association? And I suppose legally you could differentiate it, but I don't know on what basis.
Yeah, and I mean, that gets back to regulating or incentivizing certain ownership types, certain ownership structures.
I think what you're talking about right now is exactly what that sentence is intended to say, that village approval of that lot size is not viewed as a vested right, has to be determined on a case-by-case basis. So when we reviewed the plat for the Glen at Pewaukee Lake, we evaluated, the entirety of it. We looked at it and said, okay, so in this particular case, you're talking about private roads, the cross-section is going to be a little narrower. Do all of the street layouts provide appropriate, access to each one of these lots? Are any of these lots so squeezed that they don't function adequately for access reasons or something along those lines? You're talking about one of the things among the many that are part of the Planning Commission's review of that plat. And at the same time, when Riverside plat came in, exact same discussions were had. Are these going to be private streets? Are they going to be public streets? What, where and what does your open space look like? How is the overall configuration? Is it, does it flow properly? Those kind of things. And that really is, I think what that sentence says is that that's the case-by-case basis that you're considering each project on. Still in all, I think it's fine if you want to say, in no case will a project have more than 30% of its lots at this particular threshold, minimum threshold size. But like Trustee Roberts said, we haven't gotten to see the end result of, and nothing you change now is going to change either of the two approved projects. Their plats are approved. We can't go back now and undo any of that. But before we talk about changes that will affect the future developments of this sort, maybe we want to get eyes on a more finished product.
I totally get where Trustee Bill is coming from to try to establish some more definitive guidelines. However, as Trustee Roberts stated, I think it might be a little bit premature right now to delve too far into that. And that's kind of the purpose of this board is to really look at the overall scenario and make the best decisions for the village, because each one of these things these projects is remarkably unique in every sort of way, and differences of where we can go from 7,500 to 7,600 is very small, and I mean one lot could really just change all the percentages instantly. And likewise, it's, we often end up with these albatrosses, in both of these cases, going back to it, these projects were these large albatrosses, and we've done just about anything to get rid of them and bring in a great development. And I think leaving it to the discretion of the board and relying on the language that's already in there, I think is sufficient for the time being. And if Robert said it, we look at the land and see that it's atrociously jammed together in congruent development there, then yeah, I think definitely do that. But at this point right now, you kind of be inclined to rely currently on our language, and then maybe we address this within 12 months or so.
I agree.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is there anybody that would like to make a motion or possible action on this?
Yeah, I gotta look back.
What do we do?
So it's here for recommendation, and it's been referred to by the village board, so if there's a specific modification that's the board wants to recommend, that's fine. Your recommendation can also be that after deliberation, no modification is needed.
Make a motion to make a recommendation that no further action is needed. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll second that, and thank you for bringing it up. I think it's a very good topic of discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Would the planning commission like to hold off on 5A again till the next meeting?
Eventually, Mary.
Yeah, I think maybe we could discuss that at another meeting. Item 7 is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with commission members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the commission is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the commission. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address. For the record,
So with regards to, and seeing as how I'm in the industry, HVAC screening, you make it too tall, the units won't perform. You'll stop the air circulation of the condensing unit and the cooling effect that the air conditioning unit will be able to have. So you have to keep that in consideration.
he's an AC guru, so he knows what he's talking
So
about.
you're going to have to spread the screening out farther away from the unit to be able to get airflow. Yeah.
Gotcha. So if your phone rings in the next couple of weeks.
With regards to the infill development, I understand your point. Again, I'm looking for the future. I also want you to consider and to look, when you go back home, at the plot for the Riverside Preserve, and look at the first 7 homes that are along Ridgeway. Those are the lots that are primarily less than 78,000 square feet. And all of those are facing existing homes on the other side of Ridgeway, whose lots are somewhere between 10 and 13,000 square feet.
Thank you, sir.
It's not about our I just want to say that we did live down the road from the nursing home, and I think you may be missing the traffic. There is, we did observe a lot more traffic than you guys are talking about, especially at the shift changes. So just keep that in mind when you're discussing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 8 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I, real quick, because I can't make the board meeting on Tuesday, I'd like to thank Ed for his service over the last couple of years. Now that you're leaving us, we'll miss you.
I'll still be around.
I know. On that side.
Actually, you won't be a trustee on Tuesday, will you? What, doesn't Heather start?
Oh, you don't have to listen to me. Except for on this side.
Well.
That's the more dangerous side.
Did you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are hereby adjourned.
Thanks, Brian.
Are you going to be there on Tuesday? I think we have something.